welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today I'm going to be chatting with you guys about all the books that I read in the month of November. I ended up reading 8 books this month, which was very impressive for me. I was very happy with the amount of books that I read. However, if you guys watched my TBR video where I did the prompt jar video for my TBR for the month of November, I think I had 4 books. I only ended up reading one of those books, so I was a little disappointed in that, but I had very good reasons for it, which was that there was literally 1,000 new releases in the month of November, and I was so excited about them that I just chucked my TBR to the side, read the new releases, and then at the end I was like, I'm gonna try and read some, and I only ended up reading Daydream. It was still a great month, and I'm sure that I will get to the rest of the books that I had on my TBR at some point. So my husband has kind of set me a challenge, not really, has forced me into a book buying ban. So I'm desperately trying to read my physical TBR, and the month of November wasn't that great for me, if I'm going to be honest. Out of the 8 books, 3 of them were physical, but one of them I bought because it was a new release, so I didn't have it already. So only 2 of them were actually from my physical TBR, which is a little sad, but I'm going to desperately try to be better in the next month. So let's jump into the books that I read in the month of November. So I started off the month with Pucking Around by Emily Rath. If you've not heard of this series, it is a hockey romance series. I think that there's a book before this one that's kind of like a novella. It's like a 0.5 book, and this is number 1 book. I did not read that one. I just jumped straight into this one because my cousin lent me this book so long ago, and I just had been putting it off, just all due to the size, because I was like, this is a commitment, especially for a romance. I love hockey romance. It's one of my all-time favorite genres. I just always have the best time reading them, and this was no different. I definitely enjoyed reading it. I loved the hockey side of it. I loved the romance. However, this is one of the spiciest books I've ever read in my life, and I literally was just like blushing, I was cringing, and it was just very intense. If you do not like smut, this is not the book for you. It is a wide choose romance, which was my first time ever reading a wide choose romance, so it definitely was a shock to the system. Still enjoyed it. In saying that, I did have a good time, and I was like, this is just making me giggle because it was just so beyond anything that I have ever read before. But yeah, it was still a really good time. I think I ended up rating this one a 3.75. I think there was just definitely some moments where I was like, this is a lot. And also, considering how big this is, there actually wasn't a lot of plot, so I think I just put the rating down a little bit for that reason, but it's still a good time if you love smut and you love hockey romance. Then on my Kindle I read Hexed by Emily McIntire. This is the 6th book in the Never After series. If you don't know the Never After series, they're basically all retellings of Disney movies, which is so fun. I loved this series so much. They're all on Kindle Unlimited. I picked up Hook one day, which is the first book in the series, and I read it a little bit apprehensively. I was a little bit nervous just because it is a dark romance, and I don't think I'd read a dark romance at that point, and I loved it. I had a great time. I know that that book has mixed reviews, so I just smashed through that series. There definitely were some that made me a little bit more uncomfortable than others, and some that I didn't love as much as others, but I still really enjoyed the whole series, and this book was no different. I loved Hexed. It was so good. It was a retelling of The Little Mermaid. We've got Vanessa, our main female character, and Enzo, our main male character. They're both kind of part of these morally grey, morally black kind of families, and they do some not morally okay things as part of their businesses, but that's kind of what you expect when it comes to dark romance. Enzo is actually engaged to Vanessa's cousin, and so when Vanessa and Enzo meet for the first time, it is like this instant spark, and so you kind of see how they navigate that, and it's just lots of really fun things. I love all of the little kind of references to The Little Mermaid, and I love how she does that because it's absolutely not a retelling of The Little Mermaid. It is very fun in regards to just like, yeah, the references and the characters' names, and the villain in the Disney movie is usually the one that ends up with a happy ending, which is just super fun sometimes. I really love this book and I ended up giving it a 4.5 star rating. Then I read Skyshade by Aster. This is another new release, so Hexed, and then this one is the second new release that I read for the month of November. Aster is the author of the Lightlark series, and this is the third book in that series. I actually really enjoyed Lightlark and Nightbane. I had heard very mixed reviews, so I was very nervous to go into reading that series, but I really enjoyed it. I particularly enjoyed Nightbane. I think it answered so many questions that I got from the first book, and I just loved that, and it was just a really good vibe. So I was having a great time, so excited for this book to come out, and then this just kind of really fell flat for me. I did enjoy it, however, I just felt like there was so much going on. There was just one thing after the other, and it didn't feel like it flowed. It was so choppy. I felt like there were parts of the book where it almost felt like she'd taken out chapters of the book and it just skipped over a bunch of stuff, and I was just so confused. Felt like it just kind of ruined the reading experience because I just was so like, this is just going everywhere and I just don't know what's happening. It just didn't feel super fun. Also, a lot of the book, when Isla, the main female character, was going off on adventures and doing things, she was doing a lot of it on her own, and I felt like because of that there was no dialogue. We had no dialogue between her and any other characters, and so it was just boring, to be honest. I just really wanted that banter, that tension between her and other characters, especially Grim and Oro. Don't get me wrong, there was definitely dialogue in it. There are moments where she sees both of them, but it's just, there wasn't a lot, and I felt like I would have loved it if there was just more of that tension, and also them just like chatting with each other about what's going on. Like, there's this really big deal about what Grim did and, like, you know, how she feels about both of them. And so yeah, that was just something that I kind of wish was a little different, as well as I just can't get over the fact that we are still dealing with this love triangle 3 books in, and at the end of this book we're still dealing with it. I can't believe it. Like, I just want a conclusion. I just want to kind of be heading in a conclusion. That would be great. And I just kind of want to know what's going on, but it doesn't feel like we're kind of getting any conclusion towards that at the end of this book. However, Aster did mention that she is going to be releasing 2 more books for this series. One of the books is kind of going to be, she said it's going to be like a standalone kind of, it's going to be a part of the series, but it's not actually a continuation from this book. So I don't even know what that means. She said that both Grim and Oro lovers are going to love this book. Doesn't matter which side you're on. So take that as you will. However, there is going to be a 4th official book that is going to continue on from this book. It'll be good to get more answers. However, I just felt like this book, as much as I was so excited for it and I had so much hopes, it just got me a little less excited about continuing on with the series. I ended up giving this one a 3.25 star rating. I then moved on to one of my book club reads, which is Part of Your World. This was my pick for this month with my in-person book club, and I loved this. This is by Abby Jimenez, and it's my first book that I've ever read by her, and I've heard nothing but amazing things from this author and her writing, and so I was so excited to pick up my first book of hers, and it definitely did not disappoint. It was just so sweet and so lovely. Daniel, who is the main male character in this book, is just the epitome of a walking green flag, but in the best way possible. Like, he is not boring, but he is so sweet and so lovely. Alexis, our main female character, and Daniel, our main male character, run into each other in Daniel's hometown. He lives in this really small town and he's actually the mayor, and then she lives in this big city about 2 hours away. She's a doctor and she's part of this really well-known family who's really high up in the medical world, and so she feels like their lives just don't mesh well together. However, they just have this instant connection and they get along so well. They have this one night together and they just enjoy it so much, and she is just so smitten with him. But she is dealing with this huge breakup that she just recently had, and this guy, he sucks and he's just so annoying, and so she feels like she needs to put up all these walls because she is dealing with all of this stuff that's going on and just doesn't trust men and just her life at the moment. And so Daniel is this sweetest guy who is just so easily just pushing through these walls and is just loving on her the way that she deserves to be loved. However, she does end up dealing with this huge family drama and she just does not know how to handle it, and she's just trying to figure out how to mesh those two worlds together because she just doesn't feel like that's gonna happen. So you kind of go from there and see how they both navigate these things. I feel like it was just such a cute romance. However, it had so much substance. There was so much going on between both of the characters and their lives separately and what was going on with them and things that they were dealing with, and I just felt like that was so sweet and I really enjoyed that. However, there's one thing that I didn't love about this book, which was the age gap. I'm not an age gap girly. I don't know what it is. It just makes me feel weird and I don't know, I just don't love it. She is actually the one that is older than him, which again, it's so fine. Age gaps are fine and it's not inappropriately big, but it just, I don't know, I just don't know why I just like don't connect with age gap books. And another thing that was a little weird and kind of put me off slightly but wasn't a huge thing, there was just this almost mystical element to this book, which it's not a fantasy at all. However, she just kind of includes these little mentions of this town having this magical element where it just does things in order to make things happen or make people feel a certain way. And it's very much just, you know, the trees start lowing and like leaves start falling at this certain time, and so they're like, oh, the town, blah blah blah. It's meant to be super cute and it is cute, but it just felt at times was super cringe and just felt a little out of place. So those were really the only two things that I didn't love about this book, but I still had such a good time, so I ended up rating this one a 4.25. And moving on to my next book club read, that was The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. I think that's how you say her name. I have a beautiful best friend and her name is Alethea, and so she pronounces it Thea, so I assume that that's how she pronounces it as well. This book was a book club read with my beautiful friends that are my long distance best friends, and we pick a book club every month, and this was the one for the month of November. I did read this book on audio because I just had so many other books I was reading, and I also love to have a audio book going at all times, and I'm so glad I ended up reading this book as an audio because I do not think I would have gotten through this book without it. The world building and the way that she described things in this book was so intense. She used like 1,000 words to describe this one thing. It just felt like it would have been so hard for me to read physically. I'm so glad I read it via audio. I had a good time reading this book, but it definitely wasn't anything crazy. I think I went into this book with zero expectations. I had no idea what it was about. I think I watched a few TikToks before I went into this, or like kind of part way through reading this, and even those were just like talking about how it's really great and you should read it and kind of comparing it to other fantasy books, and it still didn't give me a huge idea of what this book was about, and I still don't even know how to explain to you what this book is about. I think that I struggled so hard with the world building, and the beginning of the book I was so confused. There is definitely a romance element to this book, and it was a lot more prominent than I thought it was going to be from the beginning. I was, oh, this is going to be almost like Throne of Glass, where it's way more about the fantasy and the romance is a subgenre, but it definitely turned out to be that the romance was a big part of this book. I don't know how I feel about continuing this series. I think that I'm intrigued to see where it goes, but I also didn't have the best vibe time whilst reading this book, if that makes sense. I just kind of was like, I'm just reading it because I have to. It's a book club read and it's fine. It's okay. So I continued and I finished. So we'll see whether I continue the series, but I did end up rating this book a 3-star. And then I read The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This was another new release that I read, the third one for the month, and I really enjoyed this book. It is the third book in the Crown of Nyaxia series. It's the first book of the next duology, so she's doing kind of duologies in the book, and we've had the first duology, which is The Serpents and the Wings of Night, and then The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. And so this one is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. It's the first book in the new duology, and I was so excited for it because I really did enjoy the first 2 books. And Carissa Broadbent's writing is so beautiful. It's so well written, and it's just such a nice time reading her writing and her books, and she really does a great job. However, I did feel like this book was just so intense. Like, there was just one thing after the other. So much was happening, and once she kind of something happened and they dealt with it and it was crazy and these things were coming, and then there was like calm down for like literally 2 seconds, and then another thing and another thing and another thing, and it was just like actually felt so repetitive, and because it was almost like the same things kept just coming after them, and I was just like, here we go again. It was too much for me, honestly. I love some action and I love fantasy, but this was too much. I felt like because of that, the 2 main characters just didn't get time to connect the way that I wish that they would have, and so I felt like their connection towards the end it wasn't real for me. Like, I felt like they didn't have that time to be able to chat and get to know each other and for them to open up to each other. They did open up to each other at some parts, but I felt like they only did that because they were forced to do it because of the things that were happening. So I felt like it just didn't feel super genuine, and I just wish that there was a little bit more downtime, even just chats with other people and like all of that stuff. So it was still a good book, and I'm 100% so keen for the next book. Just had those few little elements where I was like, I just wish there wasn't as much of this, or just was kind of the vibe that I had whilst reading it. So it was still good. I think I ended up rating this one a 4-star. So it still was a great read, and I still love the series so much, but I really have high hopes for the next book that we're going to get a little bit more of kind of that connection, a little bit different setting and that sort of stuff. So see how that goes. And then my last new release for the month was Save Me by Monique Koen. This is actually a beautiful friend that I met on Book Talk, and she wrote this book. It is the 2nd book in the Deadly Sin series. So she sent me the first book, Haunt Me. This is the first book in the series, probably in August. So it wasn't that long ago. She wrote this 2nd book so quickly. I had such a good time reading this first book. I read it all in one day. It is a dark romance, and it's a lot darker than what I'm used to. However, I just had such a good time, so I was so excited for the next book, which is Save Me. It was released on the 25th of November. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so I just downloaded that straight away, and it was so good. It definitely had the vibes that I enjoyed from the first book, and I read it so quickly again. They're super short and they're really big writing, so they're so easy to smash through. So if you are looking for a series that is just going to be quick and easy and a good time, this is definitely the one that you want to pick up if you're into dark romance, because they have very big triggers. Especially Save Me has some really intense triggers. I did have to skip over just a few small parts that I was like, I just can't read this. Definitely go into that book knowing that you need to take these triggers seriously. However, they still are such a good time, and she did such a good job. Basically, in the first book, it is a stalker dark romance. So we've got this guy and he's stalking this girl, Starlet, and he like keeps climbing into her house and leaving her notes, and then she's like seeing the notes and she's like, this is creepy, but also I kind of like this, and it kind of just goes from there. You really just have to read the book. I would definitely say that there is a plot to it, but it's definitely more mainly character based and definitely more about the romance and the connection between the two. In the 2nd book, I definitely can't tell you exactly what it's about because it'll spoil the first book. It's very intense, but it's just so fun, and so it was really quick and easy, and I'm really glad that I got to pick that up and read it and support my beautiful friend, because she did such a good job and her writing has only gotten better. So I'm so proud of you, Monique. Well done. And I'm so glad I got to read it. I ended up rating this one a 4.5 star. And then lastly, my one and only TBR read for the month is Daydream. Now, I do want to be super honest with you guys. I did finish this book on the 2nd of December. I don't know how you guys feel about that, whether you think that that's really a December read or if it's a November read, because I was reading majority of it in November. November. I was so busy the last few days of November. I was away babysitting, and so I didn't have a lot of time to read, and so I felt like I would have finished this in November if I had the time. So I just needed those first 2 days of December to finish this book, which I did. So I want to count it in my November reads because I just desperately wanted to finish a TBR read, and this was it. This is the third book in the Maple Hill series. We've got Icebreaker, Wildfire, and then Daydream. They're all hockey romances. Each book is following one of the guys from the hockey team as well as a girl. It is a college hockey romance, and so the first book is very much definitely based around the hockey, the college life, and all of that, which I really enjoyed. The second book is Wildfire, so that one is actually set at a camp, and they're basically camp leaders. That's Russ and Aurora, and they're so cute. I had a really good time reading that one, but I didn't love it as much as Icebreaker. And then this book, Daydream, is about Henry, and it's got Hallie, and they are honestly the cutest. I loved this book so much. It definitely was my favorite in the series. I had such a good time reading this. I related so well with Hallie. She is literally me, and I was like, this is kind of triggering in a way, but also so great. I just felt like it was such a nice feeling to be able to relate to a character and to be able to see how they're growing from all of these things that they experience, and they feel the insecurities they have and see how that they grow from that and be like, you know what, maybe I can do that, and maybe I can grow from this, and I can make good out of the things that I feel and do and love. And so yeah, it was a really great time at reading this. Basically, a little synopsis: we have Hallie and we have Henry. Henry is a team member, and he has just been made captain of their hockey team. However, he is neurodivergent, but he has not been diagnosed, and so he is really struggling with understanding why he is not great at studying and being a great captain and being able to sort all of these things out in his mind, because he's like, I don't understand what's going on in my mind, let alone trying to explain that to people. And then we've got Hallie, who is this super cute, bookish girl. She loves to bake, she loves to craft, and she wants to be an author. She has a sister, and she is also neurodivergent, and she's got ADHD diagnosed, and she was basically like, I know how to help you because I've helped my sister for so long to teach her different ways to be able to learn and handle certain situations. And so she just very slyly and very sweetly just introduces these little things into his life, and he's like, wow, I just didn't realize that these things could really help. She just really helps him with a lot of that stuff. And then he is basically helping her deal with this toxic relationship she just got out of. She is writing this book for a book competition, and she feels like she hasn't had the experiences most college girls her age have had, and so she feels like she doesn't qualify to be able to write this book that she wants to write, because she's like, I haven't experienced anything, I don't know how to write this and explain these things and be able to put emotion into this book when I haven't experienced things. So while she is helping him with all of his stuff, he is like, why don't I help you by giving you some experiences? And so it's very much a friends to lovers book, and I didn't think that I loved that kind of trope, but I loved it in this book so much. It was so good. He basically, you know, took her on dates even though they were just really good friends, and just showed her what it's like to go on a date and to, you know, just actually be loved and do some really fun things. And it was just honestly so cute. I just can't explain it any other way than it's just so wholesome and so sweet and so cute. I just loved it. So I rated this one a 5-star, and I definitely think that anyone who loves romance, loves hockey romance, and just wants a good time, pick this book up, please. So those are the 8 books that I ended up reading in the month of November. Like I said, I'm very proud of the amount of books that I read, but I think December will definitely be focused on reading more physical books, because I read a lot of Kindle books this month. Like I said, very good time. Wait, I read 4 physical books. I just realized right now that I've actually read 4 physical books this month. So 4 out of 8 is actually really great, and I'm happy with that. But the month of December will definitely be better than that. I hope you guys had a good time chatting with me about all the books that I read. I really love chatting with you guys about them. I hope to catch you guys in my next video. Have a great day.